Pepper trained, yet Cayenne still called her an amateur. Her final exam became an unrestricted duel above Chaosah. Cayenne attacked, expecting her student to fail again. Pepper used carrot and a wormhole to force checkmate. She earned her degree, but remained barely passable. A king laughed and banished her from battle. Pepper promised victory without sacrificing one soldier. Her peaceful spell worked, but both armies blamed her. Wasabi forced Pepper's closest friend to attack. Pepper surrendered and entered a magical prison. Shichimi exposed Wasabi's plan to conquer every school. An angry army arrived first, igniting war. Pepper recognized a chain reaction caused by her choices. Nearly powerless, she borrowed forbidden energy from a dragon. One unstable spell swept across the battlefield. Soldiers dropped weapons and embraced former enemies. One amateur had ended entire war. Now watch failure make Pepper a real witch. High above the clouds, the floating city of Kimona prepares to host its legendary magic contest. The mayor of Kimona enthusiastically announces the official commencement of the highly anticipated magical competition. He proudly reveals a brand new voting technology that will allow the entire audience to participate in the judging. Attendants distribute small handheld remote controls to the spectators so they can actively vote for their favorite witches. Pressing the green button awards a single point to a competitor, while the red button instantly deducts one. To balance the crowd, the official jury members receive powerful remotes worth a whopping 100 points per press. Pepper marvels at her remote control while Carrot inspects the glowing device with curious interest. Each participant's real-time score will magically hover directly above their head for everyone in the arena to see. The mayor explains that only the 3 highest-scoring witches will advance to the grand finals of the contest. The winner of the competition will walk away with a massive grand prize of 50,000 toe coins. The excited crowd erupts into loud applause as the massive prize money is announced to the arena. Carrot playfully taps the buttons on his remote to test how the new voting system works. Pepper praises the innovative voting system, calling it a highly democratic and amusing way to judge quality. She happily declares that they live in a fantastic era where expert judges are no longer necessary. The young witch remains entirely optimistic about this modern, democratic approach to evaluating magical talent. With the crowd fully prepared and holding their remotes, the mayor officially declares the magic contest open. Chamomile kicks off the event by casting a powerful nature spell that summons massive, twisting green vines. Pepper watches the impressive opening performance with anticipation, eager to see how the audience will cast their votes. Chamomile kicks off the contest with a magnificent nature spell, conjuring massive green vines that twist high into the sky. The audience members immediately tap their voting remotes to show their support for her impressive opening performance. The voting system registers a fantastic score of 5,861 for Chamomile's beautiful display. Next up is Shichimi, who confidently prepares to cast her own spell by invoking the power of light. She unleashes an incredibly intense burst of light that floods the entire arena in a blinding white flash. The sudden glare completely blinds the audience, causing them to cover their eyes and complain in extreme discomfort. Seeing her friend struggle, Pepper urges Carrot to give Shichimi a positive vote anyway out of loyalty. Despite Pepper's support, the unhappy crowd boos loudly, leaving Shichimi with a disappointing negative score of 40. Spirulina takes the stage next, calling upon the sea to summon a massive watery kraken that splashes over everyone. The crowd loves the spectacular aquatic show, awarding Spirulina a commanding lead with over 6,000 points. Coriander steps up next, determined to impress the audience with her dark and mysterious necromancy magic. She summons a group of dancing skeletons from a glowing magic circle, attempting to charm the crowd. Unfortunately, skeletons seem to be out of fashion, earning Coriander a mediocre score of just over 2,000. Saffron refuses to be outdone by Spirulina and prepares to unleash her most powerful fire magic. She leaps into the air with fiery determination, spinning around to create a spectacular vortex of swirling flames. As Saffron pushes her magic to the limit, the intense flames suddenly begin to spiral out of control. The roaring fire backfires spectacularly, engulfing Saffron in a sudden blast that completely burns away her clothing. Saffron is left standing in absolute embarrassment, covered in soot and shocked by her sudden wardrobe mishap. Saffron shrinks back in absolute embarrassment, only to look up in shock as the audience begins to clap for her. To her utter surprise, her daring and explosive display earns her an impressive score of nearly 15,000 votes. Meanwhile, Pepper can only facepalm in disbelief while the nearby lords enthusiastically tap their voting devices to show support. The mayor quickly wraps his coat around Saffron to restore order, announcing that she has qualified for the finals alongside Chamomile and Spirulina. The mayor asks the 3 finalists if they are ready for one final challenge to determine the ultimate winner. The magical scoreboard lights up with their final tallies as the crowd cheers wildly for their favorite young witches. Seeing how much the crowd loves the dramatic magical display, Pepper begins to change her mind about the voting system. As the audience continues to tap away enthusiastically, Pepper watches the chaotic spectacle unfold with a brand new appreciation. 1 week later, Pepper and Carrot take a walk through the bustling streets of Kimona Market. They stop in front of a wall covered in posters celebrating Saffron's massive success and newfound fame. Seeing her rival's sudden rise to stardom leaves Pepper feeling incredibly discouraged and left behind. Overwhelmed by sadness, Pepper drops her bag of yellow flowers onto the cobblestone street. Unable to face the bitter reality, she runs away down the empty alley, leaving her groceries behind. As a cold rain begins to fall, Pepper sits alone on a rooftop overlooking the gloomy city. Carrot quickly flies in on her broomstick, wearing her oversized witch hat to keep her dry. Pepper looks up at her loyal companion, deeply touched by his sweet gesture in her time of need. Taking her hat back, she explains how hard she works to follow the rules and traditions of magic. She tearfully complains that it is completely unfair for Saffron to achieve such fame using cheap shortcuts. Clinging to Carrot, the young witch sits in the pouring rain, feeling utterly defeated by her lack of recognition. Suddenly, a golden teapot drops from the sky and lands directly on Pepper's head with a loud metallic clang. Rubbing her head, Pepper picks up the mysterious object as it begins to glow with a magical warm light. A massive golden cloud erupts from the spout, filling the rainy street with a spectacular burst of energy. A grand genie emerges from the smoke, introducing himself as the genie of success who is ready to serve her. Pepper and Carrot watch in absolute disbelief as the magical entity begins rattling off a list of legal disclaimers. He promises her instant global fame, professional stylists, and a massive marketing campaign to rival any other witch. With a wide grin, the genie presents a contract, urging Pepper to sign her name for immediate glory. The genie urges Pepper to sign the contract, promising that a single signature will unlock the doorway to ultimate glory. Pepper suddenly pauses, finding it highly suspicious that a miracle solution fell from the sky right at her lowest moment. Refusing to fall for a cheap con game, Pepper proudly walks away and calls for Carrot to join her. Nearby, a group of ordinary street pigeons watches the glowing magical teapot left behind on the rooftop. The determined birds lock their eyes onto the magical opportunity, sensing a chance to change their lives forever. With eager coos and chirps, one of the pigeons steps up to seize the genie's tempting offer instead. As they stroll down the quiet street, Pepper tells Carrot that rejecting such shortcuts is what growing up is all about. She explains the importance of avoiding the easy way out and learning to appreciate the true value of hard work. With a gentle smile, she adds that there is absolutely no point in being jealous of other people's success. Walking past posters celebrating Saffron's fame, Pepper remains optimistic that fortune will eventually smile on them as well. Suddenly, a strange magical sound echoes through the street, causing Carrot to pause and look back in surprise. To Carrot's absolute shock, Saffron's posters magically transform into advertisements celebrating the rapid rise of a celebrity pigeon. Back at the snowy cottage, Cayenne immediately rejects Pepper's wish to have a festive unity tree in their home. Cayenne firmly reminds her that as witches of chaos, they absolutely do not participate in such festive traditions. She strictly orders Pepper to stop daydreaming and focus entirely on studying her spells of destruction instead. Pepper wonders why she must learn destructive magic during this season rather than focusing on spells of creation. Cayenne yells that her exams are approaching and demands she stop distracting herself with these foolish ideas. After Cayenne slams the door, Pepper and Carrot are left alone in the quiet library, feeling thoroughly disappointed. Determined not to spend winter without a unity tree, Pepper decides she will simply make her own. She gets the brilliant idea to combine Hippia and Chaosah magic together for the very first time. She envisions a magnificent green tree beautifully illuminated by stars and miniature solar systems of her own creation. Creating this tree would be the perfect way to prove that her magic can be truly creative. However, she realizes her godmothers would immediately notice her practicing anything other than her spells of destruction. Suddenly, Pepper remembers a helpful tip she once read in her magic textbook that might solve her problem. She finds a chapter where Thyme recommends practicing dangerous spells safely inside a private micro-dimension. Pepper quickly skims past the warnings, ignoring the rule about not bringing any creations back to reality. Since the book promises complete privacy inside the pocket dimension, Pepper eagerly casts the spell to begin her work. Meanwhile, in the other room, Kumin and Thyme sense the sudden magical shift and hope Pepper is being careful. Pepper finds herself inside a perfectly isolated magical sandbox, containing only the portion of the library she needs. Safe from her godmother's watchful eyes, Pepper happily focuses her energy on bringing her creative masterpiece to life. Her first attempt at growing a tree yields a rather spindly and barren result, which is definitely not what she wanted. The next try is even worse, producing a creepy, organic monstrosity that leaves Pepper feeling completely grossed out. On her third try, a beautiful glowing tree appears, but it is far too small for Carrot to safely play with. After resizing the magical pine to a grand and perfect scale, Pepper admires her gorgeous, glowing holiday masterpiece. Convinced that a simple unity tree is completely harmless, she prepares to deploy her creation back into the real world. Downstairs, Thyme senses Pepper returning from her pocket dimension and commends Cayenne for finally getting through to their young apprentice. Pepper warns Carrot not to touch anything before heading downstairs to fetch her godmothers for the big reveal. Left alone in the room, the curious orange cat happily agrees to stay put and guard the glowing tree. Suddenly, the magical pine tree begins to vibrate violently, emitting a strange and ominous low humming sound. Before Carrot can react, the tree suddenly expands with a massive burst of energy, catching the poor cat completely off guard. Meanwhile, an excited Pepper proudly leads her godmothers up the stairs, promising them a spectacle unlike anything they've ever seen. Just as they reach the landing, the colossal tree violently bursts right through the roof of their home with a massive crash. Stuck high up in the massive branches, a sheepish Pepper realizes she might have cast a spell of destruction after all. Standing before the ruined cottage, the three godmothers stare in silence at the colossal tree that Pepper proudly grew. Pepper tries to laugh off the disaster, hoping her godmothers will appreciate her incredible magical shortcut. Her cheerful smile quickly fades when she notices the absolute lack of amusement on their stern faces. Thyme steps forward with an icy glare, radiating a terrifying aura of pure disappointment that makes Pepper shiver. Cayenne looks equally furious, her eyes flashing with literal bolts of lightning as she prepares to lecture her apprentice. Terrified by their intense reactions, Pepper begins to sweat, realizing she is in deep trouble for her reckless spell. Hanging her head in shame, Pepper softly apologizes for destroying their home with her impatient magical shortcut. The three powerful witches gather around the ruined cottage, contemplating how to handle their young apprentice's mess. Cumin, Thyme, and Cayenne exchange knowing glances, agreeing that a harsh lesson in patience is sorely needed. Thyme sternly explains that true magic requires hard work, reminding Pepper that there are absolutely no shortcuts in their craft. Cayenne steps forward and begins chanting a spell, her hands glowing with a brilliant purple light of reconstruction. A massive dome of magical energy envelops the entire ruined cottage, lifting the heavy debris into the air. Pepper watches in awe as the shattered pieces of their home begin to seamlessly reassemble inside the glowing sphere. Holding Carrot tightly, Pepper can hardly believe her eyes as her godmother effortlessly undoes the catastrophic damage. The swirling magical energy carefully places every single roof tile and wooden beam back into its original position. With the cottage fully restored, the three satisfied godmothers turn and walk away, leaving Pepper with one final task. A lingering trail of glowing purple magic begins to swirl around the young witch, forming glowing letters in the air. Pepper stares in surprise as the magical sparks write out the words cat food, reminding her of her daily chores. Cayenne snaps her fingers, signaling Thyme that it is time to begin their powerful magic. Thyme focuses her energy, a brilliant pink light of ancient magic beginning to glow in her hands. With a sharp gasp, Thyme unleashes a complex, glowing pink spell circle filled with powerful crystalline energy. Meanwhile, Cumin gently presents a glowing blue butterfly to Pepper, demonstrating the delicate starting point of her spell. The magical butterfly suddenly dissolves into a swirling gray vortex, showing how small forces can trigger massive storms. Cayenne joins the casting, summoning a crackling golden sphere of pure elemental energy and wind. With a fierce cry, Cayenne channels a massive bolt of golden lightning directly into the swirling vortex. Pepper runs for cover as the combined elements erupt into a colossal storm of purple clouds and lightning. Standing side by side, the three powerful godmothers unite their magical forces to reshape the chaotic energy above. The swirling storm condenses into a magnificent, glowing golden double helix structure that radiates pure restorative power. Pepper and Carrot watch in absolute amazement as the brilliant light begins to reshape their ruined home. When the light fades, a beautiful, fully restored cottage stands proudly under a clear and peaceful sky. Overjoyed by the miracle, Pepper raises her arms in celebration while holding a very happy Carrot. Thyme looks on with a stern but proud expression, silent after demonstrating her incredible magical mastery. Cayenne maintains her usual sharp, unimpressed gaze, showing no signs of exhaustion from the massive spell. Cumin glances back with a quiet, knowing look, ready to leave now that the job is complete. As the three godmothers turn and walk away, Pepper eagerly runs after them to ask how they did it. Pepper bombards them with questions about butterflies, tornadoes, and potions, but they remind her there are no shortcuts. Pepper clasps her hands together with sparkling eyes, eagerly anticipating the secret formula behind their legendary magical feats. Cayenne smirks knowingly at the young witch, preparing to reveal the ultimate secret to mastering their ancient craft. That secret turns out to be mountains of tedious studying, leaving a miserable Pepper buried under endless piles of heavy spellbooks. Pepper and Carrot happily make their way through a lush green forest toward a mysterious, overgrown stone dungeon. Clutching a rare adventurer's guide, Pepper enthusiastically explains to Carrot how incredibly useful books can be on an adventure. The guide details how a deadly eyeball guarding the front door shoots fireballs at any unauthorized visitors who approach it. By carefully sneaking up from the side, Pepper successfully covers the magical security eye with her pointed witch hat. With the eye blinded, the heavy dungeon doors swing open by themselves, allowing the duo to slip inside easily. Following the book's advice, Pepper leaps off a balcony, prepared for a falling sensation that serves as a handy shortcut. The two adventurers bounce safely onto a massive, glowing spiderweb that cushions their rapid descent through the dungeon. Pepper takes a quick nap on the web, knowing the photosynthetic spiders pose absolutely no danger to her. They soon reach a beautiful indoor garden where a gentle rain is falling over a grand stone bridge. To keep Carrot dry, Pepper holds her sturdy guidebook over both of their heads like a makeshift umbrella. Within 10 minutes of entering, they easily navigate to the central chamber housing the legendary, glowing water tree. Relaxing by the fountain, Pepper happily harvests rare leaves from the magical tree while praising the wonders of reading. After picking up a stray feather as instructed, Pepper prepares to enter the chamber of the dungeon's fearsome guardian. She comes face to face with a massive, heavily armored boss, but she remains entirely unfazed by its imposing size. Referencing her guide, Pepper quickly spots the giant guardian's hidden weak point and prepares her secret weapon. Pepper sneaks up and uses the feather to tickle the giant's exposed foot, completely bypassing a dangerous battle. The mighty guardian collapses in a fit of uncontrollable laughter, allowing Pepper and Carrot to walk right past him. Pepper spots the exit gate opening up and eagerly rushes forward, confident that her adventure is nearly complete. Just as Pepper reaches the exit, a bizarre, tentacled creature drops from above and lands right on her head. Disgusted by the slimy monster on her head, Pepper searches her guidebook for a solution but realizes Carrot cannot read. The pair tries everything to pry the stubborn creature off, pulling and tugging with all their might to no avail. Frustrated by her sudden streak of bad luck, Pepper laments that her easy victory was simply too good to be true. She dejectedly slams her book onto the stone floor, grumbling that literature might not have answers for every single situation. However, a sudden spark of inspiration hits Pepper, and a mischievous grin spreads across her face beneath the tentacled beast. Letting out a ferocious battle cry, Pepper raises the heavy book high, preparing to use it in a very unconventional way. With a powerful swing, she bashes herself on the head, sending the startled creature flying off into the air. Though left a little dizzy from the blow, Pepper happily concludes that books truly are great for solving any problem. On a bright afternoon, we find ourselves in the majestic floating city of Qualicity, where big events are underway. Banners are hung all over the city to celebrate the upcoming coronation of Princess Coriander as the new queen. Inside the castle, a stressed tailor begs Coriander to stand still so he can finish adjusting her royal gown. The tailor anxiously reminds the princess that her coronation ceremony is scheduled to begin in just 3 hours. Coriander falls silent, her expression growing increasingly solemn as she contemplates the heavy responsibilities ahead. Looking at her reflection, Coriander admits that she cannot stop worrying about her security during the massive event. She explains that coronation assassinations have tragically become a common occurrence throughout her family history. With thousands of guests arriving from all over the world, she feels incredibly vulnerable at the center of attention. Pepper and Shichimi step forward to reassure their friend, promising to act as her personal bodyguards during the ceremony. Shichimi gently suggests that the princess should take a well-deserved break to take her mind off her worries. Brightening up, Coriander eagerly offers to show her guests the latest invention she has been working on. Leaving the exasperated tailor behind, she leads Pepper and Shichimi down the stairs to her private workshop. She explains that this new creation was built specifically to address her deep anxieties about the upcoming coronation. Pepper and Shichimi watch with curiosity as Coriander prepares to unveil her highly anticipated mechanical project. With a quick click, Coriander activates a robot designed to act as a personal psychologist for its users. The polite robot introduces itself and invites its first patient to lie down on the couch for an examination. Coriander demonstrates the comfortable couch and enthusiastically asks Pepper if she would like to try the machine first. Pepper confidently declines the offer, claiming that she does not have any mental or psychological issues to worry about. Suddenly, the robot emits a massive electric shock that completely zaps Pepper on the spot. A furious Pepper demands an explanation, prompting Coriander to admit the robot shocks anyone it catches telling a lie. Insulted, Pepper insists she has never told a single lie in her entire life. The machine instantly zaps her again, proving her claim to be completely false. With her hair comically fried, Pepper angrily snaps that the situation is not funny at all. Shichimi and Coriander attempt to apologize, but they cannot hide their amusement at her misfortune. The truth-detecting robot immediately zaps both of them for lying about finding the situation unfunny. Now all three girls stand there with frizzy hair, laughing awkwardly at their shared shock. Coriander suddenly panics upon realizing her special coronation robe is completely ruined by the electrical blast. Furious, Coriander grabs a heavy mallet, determined to smash her buggy creation once and for all. Pepper quickly steps in to stop her friend from destroying the malfunctioning machine. A clever spark ignites in Pepper's mind as she realizes how they can use this bug to their advantage. That evening, a massive crowd gathers outside the castle gates for Queen Coriander's highly anticipated coronation. Coriander praises Pepper as a genius, though Pepper humbly reminds her that it was still her invention. At the entrance, the repurposed robot acts as security, bluntly asking each guest if they plan an assassination tonight. Under the magical alignment of Hireva's three moons, a stunning spectacle of light fills the Grand Zombia Cathedral. It is under this celestial glow that Coriander is officially crowned as the new Queen of Qualicity. Colorful fireworks begin to burst in the night sky high above the floating castle to celebrate the occasion. Brilliant flashes of magic illuminate the dark clouds as the Grand Kingdom prepares for an unforgettable night of celebration. The spectacular display of light and color continues to paint the heavens above the magnificent floating fortress. Every corner of the kingdom is treated to a breathtaking light show marking the beginning of a new royal era. The grand festivities kick off with a massive party attended by prestigious guests from all across the lands of Hireva. While the other magic schools celebrate, Pepper stands quietly at the balcony, lost in her own thoughts. She closes her eyes to shut out the noise of the crowd, feeling a sudden wave of isolation. Her quiet contemplation is suddenly interrupted when someone calls out her name, causing her to snap her eyes open. Pepper looks down to find Carrot affectionately rubbing against her, bringing her back to reality with a gentle touch. Feeling a chill in the night air, Pepper decides to head back inside the warm and lively castle. Outside, a crowd of eager journalists rushes toward an arriving carriage to catch a glimpse of the famous Saffron. Saffron graciously poses for the flashing cameras as reporters eagerly ask her about her glamorous outfit for the evening. Watching the spectacle, Pepper admits to Carrot that she finally understands why she is not in a festive mood. She laments how successful all her friends are, wishing she had just a tiny fraction of their grand accomplishments. Pepper notes how elegant and perfect Shichimi appears alongside the other members of her prestigious magic school. Looking down in despair, Pepper wonders what she actually has to show for herself compared to everyone else. Pepper looks back at the chaotic banquet hall, wondering if her chaotic lifestyle is all she has to show for herself. Sitting alone on a stone bench outside, Pepper sighs in the quiet night while the distant party continues without her. Suddenly, Shichimi quietly approaches the bench, calling out to Pepper to see if she wants some company. Shichimi waves cheerfully, holding a plate stacked high with delicious treats that she managed to sneak out of the banquet. She offers to share her secret stash of food, asking Pepper if she would like to have a bite. Pepper accepts the offer, and the two friends sit together on the cold bench to enjoy the stolen treats. Shichimi admits it feels strange sneaking around just to eat, since her strict teacher expects them to act like pure spirits. Pepper listens quietly, surprised to learn that even her seemingly perfect friend has to deal with such ridiculous expectations. Saffron suddenly bursts onto the scene, conjuring a small flame and looking relieved to have escaped the crowded hall. Saffron collapses onto the bench beside them, complaining about how the relentless photographers have been driving her absolutely crazy. Coriander then approaches the group, chiming in that photographers are nothing compared to the tedious political discussions she must endure. Scratching her head, Coriander complains about how exhausting it is to wear a heavy crown while dealing with boring politicians. Pepper looks on in astonishment as her highly successful friends vent about the hidden burdens of their glamorous lives. The four young witches sit side by side on the bench, sharing a rare moment of peace away from the festivities. Coriander mentions that she finally met Pepper's godmothers, calling them a very special group of witches. Pepper reacts with wide-eyed shock, bracing herself for whatever critique Coriander might deliver about her unusual family. Instead, Coriander tells Pepper how lucky she is, explaining that her godmothers let her do whatever she wants. Her friends explain how they envy Pepper's freedom to defy tedious diplomacy, dance without worry, and eat without fear of judgment. The girls look on in sudden worry as Pepper buries her face in her hands, wondering if they accidentally upset her. Lifting her tear-filled eyes, Pepper smiles warmly and assures them that she is actually incredibly grateful for their kind words. With her spirits completely lifted, Pepper happily runs back toward the festive lights while her friends watch her go with relief. Back at the celebration, Pepper joyfully embraces her eccentric godmothers, realizing just how lucky she is to have such a family. Meanwhile, in another dimension, a terrifying purple monster discovers an interdimensional rupture caused by a major cosmic event. The sinister beast commands the small breach to grow so that he can enslave and dominate this newly discovered world. Peering closer through the swirling rift, the creature catches a glimpse of something interesting on the other side. Believing it is his lucky day, the monstrous entity watches the tear and reality expand further. Seeing a peaceful city inhabited by intelligent creatures, the beast laughs maniacally as the breach continues to grow. Back in the mortal realm, Pepper and her friends relax on a balcony after enjoying their wonderful celebration. Coriander and Saffron curiously ask Pepper to explain the mysteries of how her unique Chaosah magic actually works. Laughing nervously, Pepper admits that explaining the underlying mechanics of Chaosah magic is a bit difficult. She describes it as an understanding of chaotic systems, spanning from the smallest details to the grandest scale. While Shishimi, Coriander, and Saffron look completely bewildered, Coriander dryly comments that the explanation clears things right up. Eager to make things clearer, Pepper decides to demonstrate her magic with a simple real-world example of chaotic wisdom. She begins searching the balcony floor, looking for a small object to prove her point to her friends. With a triumphant smile, Pepper spots exactly what she needs and reaches down to pick it up. She retrieves a discarded wooden skewer that was wedged tightly between the cobblestones on the ground. Pepper explains that removing this skewer prevents someone from stepping on it, creating a positive ripple effect throughout existence. Her friends are thoroughly disgusted by the dirty, saliva-covered skewer, though Saffron remains politely impressed by the demonstration. Coriander suggestively tells Pepper it is bedtime, hinting that she should probably wash her hands before going to sleep. Annoyed by their reaction, Pepper prepares to toss the skewer away as Carrot watches her with a confused expression. Feeling dismissed by her friends, Pepper casually flicks the dirty skewer over her shoulder as she runs to catch up. The discarded wooden stick bounces twice off the cold stone railing, drawing a curious look from Carrot. Carrot tries to swipe at the flying object in midair, but it zips past his paw and sails over the balcony. The orange cat watches in confusion as the skewer plunges down into the dark, quiet streets below. The wooden skewer spins rapidly through the night air, whistling softly as it descends toward the sleeping town. It strikes a sleeping bluebird directly on the head, waking the poor creature up with a sudden start. Startled and dizzy, the bird begins to fly erratically through the dark, chirping loudly in its confusion. The noisy bird wakes a nearby resident who steps outside with his lantern just as the skewer lands nearby. Annoyed by the sudden disturbance, the sleepy townsperson shouts angrily into the quiet night to complain. As he takes a step forward, his bare foot comes perilously close to stepping on the sharp wooden skewer. The sharp point pierces his foot, causing him to hop in pain and accidentally toss his burning lantern away. The lantern smashes onto a pile of wooden crates, instantly igniting a bright, crackling fire in the alley. The startled man can only watch in horror as the flames rapidly spread along the wooden structures. The spreading fire reaches a nearby fireworks storage building, triggering a spectacular and noisy chain reaction of explosions. Amidst the chaos, a fearsome dragon-like monster emerges from a portal, ready to launch a devastating attack on the city. Just as the beast prepares to strike, a strange fizzing sound from the burning fireworks catches its attention. The monster looks on in utter bewilderment as a barrage of fireworks begins to rain down upon it. The sudden barrage of colorful explosions directly hits the beast, completely disrupting its grand plans before they can even begin. The massive beast can only watch in absolute terror as the explosive barrage detonates right in front of its face. Inside the castle, Pepper brushes her hair, completely oblivious to the chaotic battle unfolding just outside her window. She gently reassures her startled cat, assuming the loud noises are merely the townspeople continuing their festive celebrations. Pepper bids Carrot a peaceful night as the lights inside the towering castle are finally extinguished. High above on a nearby roof, the older witches observe the spectacular display of accidental magic Pepper unleashed. Cumin is amazed that Pepper caused such a massive chain reaction without even realizing what she had done. Thyme grins with wicked satisfaction, declaring that their young apprentice is finally ready for the challenges ahead. Meanwhile, the thoroughly singed monster stands in stunned silence as its summoning portal abruptly vanishes into thin air. On a quiet, starry night in the village, a peaceful calm settles over the cozy houses as everyone winds down. Feeling a bit lonely, Carrot's through a window in search of someone to give him a warm hug. Inside, Cumin is already fast asleep in her armchair, happily cuddling a different cat on her lap. Seeing that there is no room left for him, Carrot sighs with disappointment and decides to look elsewhere. The little orange cat wanders alone through the dark forest paths, determined to find some affection tonight. Carrot eventually arrives at the imposing home of Cayenne, hoping that the stern witch might offer a comforting embrace. Slipping inside the quiet house, Carrot spots Cayenne sitting rigidly in her chair, looking as intimidating as ever. He hesitates for a moment, wondering if approaching the strict witch is actually a good idea. Casting his doubts aside, Carrot gathers his courage and prepares to leap up for a surprise cuddle. With a joyful leap, the hopeful cat pounces right onto Cayenne's chest, catching the stern witch completely off guard. Without a second thought, Cayenne swiftly flings the startled cat away, rejecting his attempt at affection. Feeling thoroughly rejected, a grumpy Carrot trudges up the stairs to see if anyone else is awake. Upstairs, he finds Pepper deeply engrossed in her studies, writing diligently at her desk late into the night. Pepper is completely focused on her telescope, entirely unaware that her lonely companion is looking for some attention. Hoping his favorite companion will finally hug him, Carrot happily leaps toward Pepper with open paws. Instead of a hug, Carrot accidentally knocks over the ink, ruining Pepper's hard work and leaving them both incredibly frustrated. Still seeking comfort, Carrot approaches Thyme, who is busy working diligently at her spinning wheel. Thyme immediately scolds the persistent cat, leaving Carrot feeling completely unloved and more miserable than ever. Carrot tries his luck with Cayenne, but a messy potion accident only gets him covered in green goo and yelled at. Alone and completely rejected, the poor orange cat sits on the roof under the cold glow of the full moon. Suddenly, Carrot has a brilliant idea that instantly cheers him up and brings a massive grin to his face. As deep night settles over the quiet forest, a strange and powerful sound begins to echo from the witch's home. Inside her bedroom, Pepper is fast asleep until a bizarre, rhythmic rumbling noise suddenly disturbs her peaceful rest. She slowly opens her eyes, feeling incredibly annoyed by the persistent vibrations echoing through her bedroom walls. Grabbing a small candle, Pepper steps out onto the wooden landing to investigate the mysterious, loud noise. She cautiously heads down the dark stairs, her candle casting long shadows as the strange sound grows even louder. Pepper gasps in surprise as she realizes the powerful vibrations are shaking the entire house. It turns out the three elder witches are also wide awake, looking incredibly grumpy and demanding some silence. Together, the confused witches follow the loud, rhythmic rumbling down the hall to find out what is causing it. Pepper leads the way, cautiously peeking through a doorway toward the source of the persistent sound. There they find Carrot happily asleep on Thyme's spinning wheel chair, purring so loudly that he vibrates with absolute joy. High above the sacred hill of Chaosah, Pepper and Cayenne clash in an intense magical duel under the twin moons. Pepper dodges a massive blast and retaliates with her own spell, but Cayenne easily deflects it with a smirk. Undeterred by her apprentice's effort, Cayenne prepares to slam Pepper with a devastating magical counterattack. As a massive lightning strike crashes down, Pepper quickly casts a protective gravitational shield to block the impact. The intense magical energy crackles against Pepper's shield, holding off Cayenne's overwhelming power just in time. Pepper calls Carrot for assistance to launch Plan 7B, hitting Cayenne with a strange, pixelating spell. Cayenne grumbles in frustration as the magical attack begins to severely degrade her physical resolution. The pixelation glitch completely disrupts the reality of the scene, causing a massive crash in their magical surroundings. Breaking free from the digital glitch, an annoyed Cayenne retaliates by casting a massive atomic pyro bomb spell. A colossal purple explosion erupts across the sky, completely engulfing the area in destructive magical energy. Thick smoke fills the air as Cayenne watches the aftermath of her devastating attack, searching for Pepper. As the smoke slowly clears, there is no sign of Pepper left on the battlefield. Cayenne scoffs in disappointment, believing that her young opponent has met a pathetic and hasty defeat. Looking down at the empty crater, Cayenne assumes Pepper cowardly fled into a microdimension to escape. Suddenly, Pepper emerges from a wormhole behind Cayenne, thanking Carrot for providing her with the perfect escape route. Pepper quickly initiates a powerful black vortex spell to trap her master and claim victory in their duel. Before the battle can escalate any further, an angry Thyme suddenly intervenes and commands them both to stop. With a swift snap of her fingers, Thyme completely dispels their magic, demanding their immediate presence. The powerful magical vortex instantly dissolves into a harmless cloud of glittering stardust under the pressure of the sudden interruption. Cayenne's imposing magical form fades away as the lingering energy from their intense duel is completely neutralized. With a sharp snap of her gloved fingers, Cumin effortlessly puts an end to the dangerous display of magic. An extremely irritated Thyme demands that both combatants stand down and report to her immediately to face the consequences. The exhausted witches land on the grassy hilltop to face their elders after their chaotic battle finally comes to an end. Thyme angrily points out that Cayenne's supposedly quick test has dragged on for 3 long years instead of ending quickly. Cumin calmly prompts Cayenne to finally make a decision regarding Pepper's long-awaited graduation from her witch training. Pepper and her loyal cat Carrot wait anxiously to hear whether all of their hard work has finally paid off. Cayenne begrudgingly grants Pepper her official witch degree at a passable level, prompting a joyful celebration from the young apprentice. On a gloomy, wind-swept hill, a massive army stands ready for a brutal battle under the dark, heavy clouds. At the front of the line, the battle-hardened king scans the horizon, anxiously awaiting the arrival of a powerful ally. Turning back to his troops, the king wonders if his orders to recruit a formidable witch have finally been carried out. The king demands to know if his officers successfully recruited the powerful magic user he requested for the battlefield. The nervous officer quickly assures his lord that the new recruit is already standing right beside him. Confused by the officer's response, the aging monarch looks down to inspect his mysterious new battlefield recruit. Pepper cheerfully introduces herself to the massive ruler, completely unaware of how out of place she and Carrot look. The outraged king furiously berates his officer for bringing him a mere child instead of a terrifying war witch. Offended by his reaction, Pepper proudly presents her official Chaosah diploma to prove she is indeed a real witch. The king immediately silences her, refusing to listen to a young girl who belongs nowhere near a battlefield. He slaps her precious degree away and mockingly orders the young apprentice to go home and play with dolls. Pepper storms off in tears of humiliation as the entire army bursts into cruel laughter at her expense. Retreating to the outskirts of the military camp, Pepper tries to process the harsh rejection she just faced. She vents her frustration, realizing that despite years of hard study, people only judge her by her youthful appearance. Pepper clenches her fist in anger, wishing there was a way to make herself look far more experienced. Her train of thought is suddenly interrupted by a loud popping sound coming from right behind her. She spins around in surprise and calls out for Carrot after hearing a sudden, chaotic crash nearby. Carrot emerges looking absolutely ridiculous after stealing food, giving Pepper a brilliant idea about how to change her own appearance. Pepper looks at Carrot and tells him he looks absolutely hideous after stealing that messy meal. Suddenly, a brilliant realization strikes her as she stares at his messy, wild appearance. She realizes that appearance is everything if she wants people to take her seriously as a witch. She tears her clothing and snaps a gnarled branch to fashion a much more menacing staff. Carrot hands her a sharp bone accessory while she paints dark, mysterious runes onto her arms. Covered in a dark hood and glowing with purple magical energy, Pepper dramatically makes her grand entrance. She stands tall and imposing, letting her intimidating new aura wash over the startled soldiers nearby. The entire battlefield falls silent as the soldiers stare at this powerful, dark presence on the hill. The king halts his horse and turns around to inspect this incredibly formidable-looking new sorceress. Standing before the royal army, Pepper maintains a silent and mysterious posture to sell her terrifying act. Under her dark hood, she tries her best to look sinister and incredibly expensive to hire. The king looks absolutely overwhelmed by her dark presence and begins to sweat under the pressure. Fearing the astronomical cost of such a powerful witch, the king immediately decides to hire the kid instead. High on a dark hill, the king peers through the mist at the impending threat. From across the gloomy valley, the monstrous enemy army lets out a terrifying collective war cry. A massive, heavily armored force marches forward under the cover of a thick and ominous fog. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the king turns to the young witch for immediate magical assistance. The king tells Pepper that if she has a spell to help them, she must cast it now. Assuring him she is ready, Pepper begins channeling a powerful purple magical energy around her hands. With her eyes glowing pink, the young witch confidently promises to show them her ultimate masterpiece. Pepper unleashes a massive, colorful blast of energy while chanting her custom reality hacking spell. Brilliant bolts of magic crackle across the battlefield, striking the weapons of both opposing armies. Looking at his glowing sword, the king asks if this magic strengthens their weapons while weakening the enemy. Pepper cryptically smiles and promises him that not a single one of his soldiers will die today. The king listens closely, surprised by the incredible promise of 0 casualties on his side. However, she quickly warns him that they must still fight and give this battle everything they have. The brave king proudly responds that fighting to their absolute limit is exactly what they trained to do. Raising his sword high, the king prepares his soldiers for the imminent clash. With a powerful cry, the king commands his entire army to charge forward in the fray. From high above, the two massive armies sprint across the open field to clash in the center. The king and the enemy leader charge directly at each other, ready to strike the first blow. The two leaders clash in the center of the battlefield, swinging their massive weapons at each other with full force. Glowing numbers suddenly materialize directly above their heads, leaving both commanders completely bewildered by this strange magical phenomenon. Across the entire chaotic battlefield, similar glowing numbers appear above every single soldier, halting the violent clash in its tracks. Realizing who is behind this strange magical interference, the furious king roars out in anger, demanding to know what happened. Pepper cheerfully steps onto the quiet battlefield alongside Carrot, proudly presenting her latest magical creation to the confused armies. The young witch happily declares her new spell to be an absolute masterpiece of magic that will change everything. She explains that this complex reality-altering enchantment displays the exact remaining life points of every single warrior on the field. Once a soldier runs out of life points, they must simply leave the battlefield, making the victory condition entirely bloodless. Pepper joyfully envisions a future with no more casualties or suffering, believing her spell will completely revolutionize the nature of war. Both armies stand completely frozen in absolute silence, staring at the young witch as they try to process her bizarre proposal. To keep things fair, Pepper decides to reset all of their scores so they can start their battle completely from scratch. The opposing commanders stare at her with sheer disbelief and intense frustration, completely unamused by her peaceful magical intervention. Realizing her spell is already starting to fade, Pepper urges Carrot to run faster as they make a very quick escape. That same night, a grand ceremony is held under the beautiful northern lights to honor a very special achievement. Hibiscus proudly welcomes Shichimi as the youngest knight of presenting her with a ceremonial horn before the crowd. In the audience, Coriander and Saffron worry that Pepper is running too late to hear her friend's big speech. As Shichimi steps up to the podium to deliver her address, she begins to express her gratitude to everyone present. Suddenly, a strange, high-pitched whistling noise echoes through the hall, causing Shichimi to look up in sudden confusion. High above, a glowing magical streak hurtles toward the temple as a voice warns everyone to watch out. With a massive crash, the magical projectile smashes directly into the middle of the sacred ceremony hall. Tumbled in a messy heap, Pepper sheepishly asks if everyone is all right and if anything got broken. Recognizing her chaotic friend instantly, Shichimi can only stare in absolute shock at the unexpected arrival. Pepper quickly apologizes for her dramatic entrance, explaining that she has been running all day to get here. When Hibiscus questions the intrusion, Shichimi quickly reassures her that Pepper is a close friend of hers. Pepper checks on Carrot, admitting that she still has not quite mastered the landing while traveling at hyperspeed. She apologizes again to the crowd for the trouble and for her incredibly messy, disheveled appearance. Seeing her friend safe and sound despite the chaotic landing brings a warm, amused smile to Shichimi's face. However, the stern Master Wasabi looks down from the throne and demands to know if this witch is truly Shichimi's friend. Shichimi bows respectfully and confirms that the visitor is Pepper from the infamous school of Chaosah. The mention of Chaosah only deepens the ruler's cold glare, signaling immediate trouble for the young witch. Declaring that Pepper's presence pollutes their sacred school, Wasabi harshly orders her to be thrown out immediately. Shichimi looks absolutely devastated upon hearing Master Wasabi's harsh demand to throw her friend out. She attempts to plead with the cold leader, hoping to find some room for compromise. Wasabi instantly shuts her down by threatening her with immediate banishment from the school if she disobeys. The terrifying threat leaves Shichimi completely frozen in shock as the reality of her situation sinks in. Left with no other choice, Shichimi turns to Pepper and urgently begs her to leave the temple immediately. Pepper is completely baffled by the sudden hostility and tries to explain that there must be a misunderstanding. Shichimi pleads with her friend to just cooperate, so they do not make this difficult situation any worse. Annoyed by the unfair treatment, Pepper glares up at the throne with growing frustration. She boldly challenges the ruler, demanding that Wasabi come down and address her directly instead of hiding. Wasabi completely ignores the challenge and begins a cold countdown, giving Shichimi only 10 seconds to act. Driven to desperation by the countdown, Shichimi charges up her magic and screams at Pepper to leave. Although Pepper tries to de-escalate the situation, Shichimi unleashes a violent blast of magical energy. Shichimi continues her relentless assault, repeatedly shouting at her friend to go away while striking with her staff. Coriander and Saffron scream for them to stop, while Wasabi watches the unfolding chaos with smug satisfaction. Pushed to her absolute limit, Pepper decides she has had enough and prepares to retaliate with her own spell. Pepper desperately unleashes her ultimate cancellation spell, but the magical backlash knocks her backward. Shichimi confidently declares that even Pepper's strongest cancellation magic is useless against her power. She tearfully begs Pepper to just give up and leave so she does not have to keep hurting her. Pepper reveals that her cancellation spell worked perfectly, but she was not actually targeting Shichimi. Shichimi looks completely bewildered as she tries to understand who the actual target of the magic could be. The young witch gasps in shock as she realizes the spell is taking effect elsewhere in the courtyard. Pepper points directly at the headmistress, declaring that she was the one who needed to be exposed. Without her youth-preserving illusion, Wasabi's true, wrinkled appearance is suddenly revealed to the entire assembly of students. Pepper calmly explains that she noticed the vanity spell instantly and wanted to punish Wasabi for manipulating Shichimi. Furious at being exposed, Wasabi screams in absolute rage at Pepper for humiliating her in front of her school. Pepper remains unfazed, warning the headmistress that she got off easy compared to what full magic would have done. A dark magical aura suddenly surrounds Wasabi as her anger transforms into a sinister, calculated expression. The headmistress admits that Pepper has grown strong much faster than expected, which actually accelerates her hidden plans. Disgusted by the revelation, Pepper calls Wasabi twisted for using a fake conflict just to test her power. Wasabi orders her students to capture Pepper alive, forcing Pepper to grab Carrot and prepare for a fast getaway. Pepper looks back in shock as she realizes her initial escape route is completely cut off by the crowd. With hostile witches surrounding her from all sides, Pepper desperately searches for a way to break through their lines. Saffron suddenly tosses her own magical broom toward Pepper, offering her a vital lifeline to escape the trap. Pepper catches the broom with relief, thanking her friend quickly before preparing to launch into the air. Clinging tightly to Carrot, Pepper rockets high into the night sky, leaving the chaotic academy far below. High above the clouds, Pepper speeds through the night sky while keeping a watchful eye on her relentless pursuers. Sensing movement behind her, Pepper is relieved to see that Carrot has finally woken up from his deep slumber. She gently asks her feline friend if he is doing all right and whether the freezing high-altitude air is too cold. Pepper apologizes because her magical energy is depleting rapidly, leaving her protective aura too thin to block out the chill. She worries that her hyperspeed will fail soon, allowing the persistent dragon rider to easily overtake them once they slow down. Feeling foolish, Pepper regrets assuming her pursuers would have abandoned their exhausting chase after so many hours. Looking back at the distant silhouette of the beast, she desperately wishes for a way to shake them off her tail. Stealing her resolve, the young witch decides she must find a way to lose her pursuers before they can strike. Despite her strong determination, extreme fatigue begins to take its toll, making it difficult to maintain her magic. Her eyelids grow incredibly heavy as she struggles to stay awake during the monotonous, freezing flight. The broom suddenly dips, forcing Pepper to jolt herself awake and fight off the overwhelming urge to sleep. From a distance, Toreya patiently guides her majestic white dragon through the night, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Noticing Pepper's sudden wobble, Toreya asks her dragon companion if she witnessed the young witch's momentary lapse in control. The dragon confidently replies that the chase is almost over, predicting that Pepper's magical energy will soon be completely depleted. Torreya agrees with her partner, resolving to launch their decisive attack the moment the exhausted witch's powers finally give out. The formidable pair glides silently through the cold air, keeping a steady pace just behind their tiring target. Back on the broom, Pepper's eyes drift shut once more as exhaustion continues to cloud her focus. A sudden deafening sonic boom shatters the silence, shocking Pepper awake as her pursuers rapidly accelerate behind her. Pepper is absolutely stunned to realize her relentless pursuers have just broken the sound barrier to catch her. The massive dragon looms dangerously close, ready to end the chase right then and there. Huge razor-sharp claws swipe down through the air, narrowly missing the fleeing witch and her cat. Gritting her teeth, Pepper urges Carrot to hold on tight as she maneuvers her broom out of harm's way. Even with her desperate maneuvers, the terrifying dragon remains right on her tail, leaving no room for error. Pepper dives sharply toward the forest below, trying to shake her massive pursuer in the dense landscape. She desperately racks her brain for a way out as their options rapidly dwindle. Suddenly, Pepper spots a familiar landmark in the distance and realizes she might have a chance. She heads straight for the cave of the Lake of the Horns, knowing its dangerous terrain well. Pepper explains to Carrot that the cave ends in a deadly wall of sharp stalactites that will crush their pursuers. She flies directly into the dark cavern, leading the dragon right into her planned trap. Seeing them follow her inside, Pepper feels a surge of triumph, believing she will finally be rid of them. She laughs with dark anticipation, eagerly waiting for the massive beast to crash into the rocky spikes. As she glides over the underground lake, Pepper catches a sudden glimpse of her own reflection in the water. The sight of her own cruel expression shocks her, forcing her to confront what she's about to do. Pepper pauses in horror, wondering if she has truly become a heartless killer and a mean witch. She stops her broom just before the narrow opening, refusing to let the dragon crash into the deadly wall. With fierce determination, Pepper decides this cruelty is not who she is and prepares to halt the chase. With a desperate cry, Pepper halts her broom and surrenders, choosing peace over a dangerous and destructive confrontation. The tense chase finally concludes, leaving the serene mountain valley quiet once more under the soft evening light. Sitting by a warm campfire, Torreya warns Pepper that surrendering to the strict master Wasabi will certainly not end well. Pepper quietly admits that she still hopes to reach Wasabi and find a peaceful way to make her understand. She fondly remembers a wise friend teaching her that no mistake is truly irreparable if one is willing to try. Just then, Carrot flies in on the broom, carrying a bundle of clean clothes for his dusty friend. Pepper gratefully accepts the fresh change of clothes, thanking Torreya for allowing her loyal cat to bring them. Torreya graciously returns the favor, noting that Pepper's peaceful surrender made their difficult job much easier. However, she warns that Wasabi demands absolute perfection, and will not easily forgive Pepper's messy entrance and sudden attack. Pepper solemnly acknowledges the looming danger, fully aware of the severe consequences she will soon have to face. Torreya decides to take a quick nap before they set off, giving Pepper permission to wander nearby. The bright sun shines down through the clear sky, offering a brief moment of tranquility before their journey resumes. A sudden splashing sound from the nearby water catches Torreya's attention as she tries to rest. Pepper happily washes away the dirt in the cool lake while Carrot watches over her belongings from the shore. Torreya smiles to herself, finding this unusual and gentle young witch to be incredibly fascinating. Dressed in her clean outfit, Pepper prepares for the journey ahead alongside Torreya and her resting dragon. With newfound resolve, Pepper promises herself that she will stay true to her values, regardless of the dangers. Looking down at her smiling reflection in the water, she vows to always remain the kind witch she wants to be. Holding Carrot close, Pepper makes a firm promise to always stay true to herself no matter what lies ahead. With their spirits high, the companions soar through the sunset skies on the back of the magnificent dragon. High up in her dark fortress, the furious Wasabi refuses to accept any apology for the recent disruption. Refusing to show mercy, Wasabi orders her guards to throw Pepper and Carrot directly into the dungeon. Deep within the castle's highest tower, a glowing red magical cell is prepared for the young witch. The sinister red light of the prison window shines ominously against the dark stone walls of the fortress. Trapped inside the high-security cell, Pepper and her loyal cat Carrot find themselves surrounded by a magical barrier. The glowing red energy field hums with immense power, preventing any physical or magical escape. Looking down at her lap, Pepper feels a wave of sadness wash over her as she contemplates their situation. Her sadness quickly turns to determination as she glares at the magical barrier holding her captive. Pepper reaches out to test the barrier, but the magical energy fiercely sparks and repels her hand. Frustrated by her helplessness, Pepper realizes that her magic is completely useless inside this heavily enchanted cell. In a sudden burst of anger, she kicks a metal bucket across the room, letting out a loud growl. Pepper beats herself up, deeply regretting how naive she was to walk straight into Wasabi's trap. Suddenly, a quiet voice from the shadows startles Pepper and warns her to keep her voice down. Looking around the dimly lit cell, Pepper anxiously demands to know who is hiding in the darkness. Shichimi reveals herself from the shadows, gesturing for Pepper to remain quiet so they do not get caught. As she begins working on the lock, Pepper recognizes her friend and feels a sudden rush of hope. Shichimi softly apologizes for their earlier confrontation, explaining that she only fought because she had to. Using her own skills, Shichimi carefully begins to dismantle the powerful magical wards sealing the cell door. Pepper reassures her friend that she understands the situation and expresses her deep gratitude for the rescue attempt. Shichimi focuses her magical energy to carefully dismantle the complex wards securing the heavy cell door. She warns Pepper to keep quiet, noting that the guards spared no expense in securing this powerful magical cell. Whispering softly, Shichimi explains that she gained access to Wasabi's inner circle immediately after the ceremony. Her expression turns grim as she prepares to share the terrible secrets she uncovered while undercover. She reveals Wasabi's dark ambition to dominate all other magical schools, starting with an invasion of Qualicity at dawn. Horrified for Coriander, Pepper listens as Shichimi explains that a pilot and dragon are waiting to help them escape. Just as the lock breaks, Carrot accidentally knocks over a metal jug, creating a loud racket that alerts the guards. The sound of the alarm echoes through the quiet mountain air surrounding the isolated temple. Having been caught red-handed, both girls find themselves locked up together inside the magical prison cell. Shichimi sighs in disappointment, lamenting just how close they had actually come to making a successful escape. Pepper and Carrot can only agree, feeling the sting of their sudden misfortune after such a promising start. Curious about her captor's motives, Pepper asks why Wasabi seems to harbor such an intense grudge against her. Shichimi explains that Wasabi desperately fears Chaosah magic and the devastating chain reactions Pepper is supposedly capable of causing. Pepper laughs off the threat, admitting that she has never actually managed to trigger a single chain reaction. Shichimi looks at her friend in surprise, wondering if the grand threat was really just a misunderstanding. When Pepper confirms the truth, Shichimi giggles, realizing just how paranoid and foolish their captor truly is. Meanwhile, an armored king and his army gather outside the temple gates, preparing to launch a devastating surprise attack. Outside the temple walls, an armored king and his scout look through binoculars to confirm their target. The king demands confirmation from his officer to ensure this is indeed the temple of the threat they seek. His officer eagerly confirms that multiple spies have spotted the target which residing here very recently. Infuriated by her presence, the king growls at the thought of a witch threatening their ancient military traditions. To celebrate their new alliance, the rulers agree to launch a retaliatory strike and completely raze the temple. The king orders the catapults to fire, launching a devastating bombardment that sends explosions rocking through the ancient temple. As thick smoke fills the room, Pepper and Shichimi frantically check to make sure they and Carrot are unharmed. Shichimi is completely bewildered by the sudden military onslaught and wonders what these soldiers could possibly want from them. Peering through the dust, Pepper spots a couple of familiar faces amidst the invading forces. Shichimi immediately calls out to Toraya, who has arrived on a massive dragon to rescue her. Toraya embraces Shichimi in relief, explaining how worried she was after hearing about her imprisonment. Pepper suddenly realizes that this dragon pilot is Shichimi's girlfriend and starts connecting all the chaotic events together. A sudden realization washes over Pepper as she connects her past decisions to this current situation. Toraya and Shichimi look at Pepper with concern, wondering why the young witch has suddenly frozen up. Pepper assures them she is fine, though she has just had a major epiphany about the unfolding events. She explains that everything happening around them is actually the direct result of her own actions and choices. Shichimi is intrigued by this claim and asks her friend to explain what she means by a chain reaction. Toraya urges them to climb onto her dragon so they can escape the battlefield and head toward Qualicity. Pepper stops her friends from leaving, insisting that they cannot just run away while a battle rages nearby. Looking out at the battlefield, Pepper feels personally responsible for the conflict and refuses to let the armies destroy each other. Toraya and Shichimi are skeptical, wondering how a young witch could possibly stop two massive armies from fighting. Ara the dragon joins the questioning, pointing out that Pepper lacks the magical energy required for such a massive spell. Pepper admits her weakness but explains she has a special spell that just needs the dragon's energy to succeed. Ara immediately rejects the forbidden idea of giving magical energy to a witch, but Pepper asks he prefers carnage instead. Toreya and Shichimi plead with the dragon to make an exception, reminding him that those fighting are their school family. Reluctantly, the proud dragon relents and agrees to share his energy, warning that the risk is entirely Pepper's to bear. The massive dragon unleashes a brilliant stream of pure magical energy, showering the young witch in a powerful glow. The intense flow of magical power completely envelops Pepper as she prepares to cast her grand peacemaking spell. Feeling the sheer magnitude of the dragon's life force, Pepper is utterly amazed by the incredible power coursing through her. She takes a deep breath, focusing the immense energy as she prepares to unleash a spell she has never tried before. Shichimi urges her friend to hurry up as the chaotic battle below threatens to tear everything apart. Pepper chants the incantation, releasing a massive wave of vibrant pink magic that radiates outward across the entire battlefield. Waves of pink energy ripple through the fighting soldiers and dragons, instantly neutralizing their weapons and calming their aggression. Pepper explains that her anti-war spell is designed to transform mortal enemies into friends by converting violence into pure love. Her friends watch in awe as the fighting completely stops, and the battlefield falls into a sudden, peaceful silence. However, the dragon's amplified energy has turned the soldiers into overly affectionate couples, leaving Pepper utterly embarrassed by the results. Shichimi looks on in complete shock as she notices the former enemies are now passionately kissing. Toreya points out the sudden flood of affectionate new couples and asks Pepper if this was her original intention. A blushing Pepper sheepishly explains that the dragon's powerful energy must have accidentally amplified the love magic in her spell. As they fly away, her friends joke about this historic event while Pepper can only hide her face in pure embarrassment. Pepper and Carrot arrive at a bustling port town situated right at the foot of a massive, smoking volcano. Their ship docks safely, offering a beautiful view of the coastal town and the towering mountain peaks ahead. Stepping off the boat, Pepper happily suggests grabbing a bite to eat at the local market before they begin their climb. Carrot is immediately on board with the idea of food, much to Pepper's amusement as they head into the crowd. The market is lively and packed with merchants, making it the perfect place to blend in and find some delicious snacks. They quickly buy some freshly grilled skewers, and Carrot happily devours his treat while Pepper takes a savory bite. While enjoying their food, Pepper notices something unsettling on a nearby wall that dampens her cheerful mood. A prominent wanted poster displays massive bounties for Toreya Shichimi, and an especially high reward for Pepper herself. Pepper realizes with a shock that their bounties have been posted even in the most remote corners of the world. She urges Carrot to move quickly so they can slip away before anyone in the market recognizes them. Leaving the bustling harbor behind, they begin their steep ascent up the stone steps leading toward the volcano. The path grows increasingly rugged and ominous as they climb higher into the desolate, rocky terrain of the active volcano. Spotting a strange, glowing light in the distance, Pepper realizes they must be getting very close to the creature's nest. Peering through the intense glare, Pepper happily confirms they have finally found exactly what they were looking for. A magnificent, fiery phoenix emerges from the light and demands to know why a human is bothering it. Pepper politely greets the great beast, introducing herself as a witch of Chaosah in desperate need of help. She explains that a massive dose of dragon's Rhea has left her with a mysterious, growing mark on her chest. The corruption is neutralizing her magic and will eventually kill her if she cannot find a cure. The fiery phoenix looks down thoughtfully, correctly guessing that Pepper has come seeking its legendary healing tears. Pepper desperately confirms that obtaining those tears is her absolute last resort to save her life. With a heavy sigh, the grand elemental beast prepares to test the young witch's resolve. The phoenix suddenly challenges Pepper to make it cry, giving her a strict time limit of only 1 minute. Caught completely off guard, Pepper panics at the incredibly short deadline for such a difficult task. She desperately throws out depressing concepts like world hunger and personal loss, hoping to spark some emotion. Finding no reaction, Pepper scrambles for another idea as the precious seconds quickly tick away. She tries bringing up the plight of abandoned pets, but the majestic creature remains entirely unimpressed by her efforts. Pepper sheepishly asks if her sad stories have managed to bring even a single tear to its eyes. The phoenix roars in absolute disbelief, deeply offended by how terribly unprepared the young witch is. It passionately explains that previous seekers brought high art, intense tragedies, and powerful poetry to move its spirit. The legendary bird angrily scolds Pepper for showing up with nothing but lazy, half-baked sob stories. With a fiery gust, the phoenix banishes Pepper, telling her to return only when she has a proper plan. Frustrated and defeated, Pepper wanders down to a bustling seaside town to brainstorm a truly heartbreaking tale. She tries to pump herself up, determined to find a tragedy sad enough to make a phoenix weep. Squeezing her eyes shut, she desperately searches her mind for any sorrowful story she can possibly conjure. Realizing she simply does not have a tragic bone in her body, Pepper quickly sinks into utter despair. Suddenly, a loud shout from a nearby market vendor snaps Pepper out of her gloomy thoughts. Pepper catches Carrot trying to swipe food from an angry vendor and scolds her cat for only thinking about his stomach. Seeing the vendor's fresh produce suddenly sparks a brilliant and unexpected idea in the young witch's mind. With a mischievous grin, Pepper realizes she has finally found a foolproof way to make the legendary burry. She quickly buys a large sack of onions from the market stall to put her clever plan into action. Returning to the volcanic nest, Pepper faces the smug phoenix, who is surprised to see her back so quickly. The fiery creature mocks her metal blade, boasting that he can easily melt any weapon she tries to use. However, the phoenix quickly panics when he realizes she has no intention of attacking him with the knife. Pepper vigorously chops the pile of onions, unleashing tear-inducing fumes that force the weeping phoenix to fill Carrot's bucket. A group of brave adventurers ventures deep into a dark, sprawling castle perched high above the clouds. After a grueling battle, the party finally manages to slay a massive, armored scorpion guarding the narrow stone bridge. Fritz and Vinya celebrate their hard-won victory until they realize their companion Brassic is in a very bad way. Seeing their friend collapsed and bleeding, the panicked warriors desperately call out for a healer to save his life. A mysterious hooded figure steps forward through the mist, calmly signaling for the worried adventurers to make some room. Beneath the heavy blue hood, a familiar face smiles softly as she prepares to perform a magical feat of restoration. With a gentle chime of magic, the girl uses her glowing staff to instantly seal the warrior's deep, painful wounds. Brassic marvels at his sudden recovery, thanking the talented young woman for the miracle she performs every single time. Feeling completely invincible with such a powerful ally, the group rushes off to find the next monster and its treasure. From the shadows of the high balcony, a silent observer watches the party depart with a very skeptical expression. Kyan steps into the light, her stern face showing that she is not at all amused by what she sees. The elder witch narrows her eyes, having spent months searching for her young apprentice across the vast magical realm. While the warriors eagerly charge toward a new beast, the healer stays behind, unaware that her past has caught up. Sensing a powerful presence nearby, the young girl turns around and looks quite startled to find someone watching her. Kyan confronts her apprentice directly, demanding to know why she's been hiding out here for so many months. Pepper explains that she is finished with the witch life and has decided to pursue a brand new career path. She proudly declares herself to be the great healer Pethra, claiming that this new role makes her feel appreciated. Kyan stares back in silence, clearly unconvinced by the elaborate costume and the sudden shift in her student's identity. Pepper explains that she is tired of being hunted and laughed at while failing to find work despite her studies. She claims she is finally appreciated here, just as Brassic calls for her help to treat Vinya's recent battle injury. Pepper uses her supposed healing magic on the wounded elf while Carrot watches the glowing process with a curious expression. Kyan remains completely unimpressed by the magical display and asks if Pepper has anything else to say for herself. The elder witch explains that being wanted is a badge of honor and encourages Pepper to create her own path. Pepper looks increasingly frustrated as her mentor continues to pick apart her logic and the reality of her current situation. Kyan drops a bombshell by accusing Pepper of using phoenix tears to fake her healing abilities instead of true magic. Pepper is absolutely shocked that her secret has been discovered so easily by her observant and cynical magic teacher. She stands defensively in her healer outfit, though her confidence is clearly shaken by Kyan's sharp and accurate deduction. Kyan dismisses her student's excuses with a sharp click of her tongue, showing she is not easily fooled by tricks. Angrily, Pepper shouts that she will just get more phoenix tears because this method actually produces tangible results. The argument is cut short when the massive monster begins to shift its shape and emit a terrifying, high-pitched screech. The adventurers cover their ears in agony as the creature unleashes a sonic attack that echoes through the entire area. The intense vibrations from the monster's cry cause the glass vials of phoenix tears on Pepper's belt to shatter simultaneously. As the monster settles down, the adventurers are left dazed by the noise while Pepper stares at her ruined supply. Brasik prepares to charge the beast and tells the healer to stay alert and keep him supported during the fight. He looks back in confusion when he realizes that Pepper is no longer standing in her designated spot behind him. The party laughs at Pepper's blue-stained appearance, and Cayenne welcomes her back after her failed attempt at a career. Pepper flies away from her cruel teammates while Cayenne welcomes her back to the life she was always meant to lead. Pepper and Cayenne fly through the clouds as they continue their long journey across the vast and beautiful landscape. Pepper complains that her current broom is incredibly uncomfortable and asks her mentor if they can finally take a break. Cayenne looks down at the terrain below, considering where they might find a suitable place to rest for the night. Cayenne points toward a nearby settlement, suggesting they stop there to find Pepper a better broom and some new clothes. Pepper and Carrot look hopeful at the prospect of finally getting some decent equipment and a warm place to stay. The pair arrives at the Echo Inn and Tavern, a bustling establishment nestled in a quaint and scenic mountain village. Inside the village market, Pepper eagerly examines some new garments to replace her stained and worn-out adventuring outfit. She also finds a sturdy new broom from a local merchant, hoping it will be much easier to fly than before. After finishing their shopping, Pepper checks into the inn while Cayenne waits nearby for their room keys and assignment. They settle into their cozy room, but the peaceful atmosphere is quickly interrupted by loud shouting from the floor below. Night falls over the tavern, yet the rowdy patrons inside show no signs of slowing down their boisterous celebrations. Pepper tries to enjoy a quiet cup of tea downstairs, but the constant shouting makes it nearly impossible to relax. The tavern door swings open as more boisterous warriors enter, adding to the growing commotion and the overwhelming noise level. A group of rowdy adventurers begins loudly boasting about their recent battle exploits and the legendary axe they used. The warriors demand the largest beers available and slam their fists on the table to get the barkeep's immediate attention. Pepper winces at the sound of their clinking mugs and wonders why they have to be so incredibly loud. The Minotaur lets out a booming laugh as he describes how his ricocheting axe distracted their enemies during the fight. Frustrated by the lack of peace and quiet, Pepper complains to Cayenne about the bullies who are ruining her evening. Cayenne asks Pepper why she does not just stand up for herself and tell the noisy warriors to be quiet. Pepper looks horrified at the suggestion, noting that there are 3 large bullies who would likely cause her trouble. Cayenne remains cold and suggests that a true witch of Chaosah would simply kick the rowdy men out of the building. Pepper vents her frustration, complaining that her mentor always thinks violence is the only way to solve a simple problem. She begs Cayenne to consider a peaceful solution for once instead of always relying on intimidation and magical force. Cayenne ignores the plea and goes back to her newspaper, leaving Pepper feeling completely unheard and alone in her frustration. Since she cannot rely on her mentor, Pepper decides to take matters into her own hands with a more creative approach. Pepper grabs a nearby lute and prepares to use her imagination to trick the warriors into leaving the tavern peacefully. She begins to sing a grand tale, inviting the brave warriors to listen to a story about a legendary weapon. The Minotaur and his friends stop their shouting as they become intrigued by the mention of a powerful magical axe. Pepper describes a distant, windy temple to the north where a great treasure is waiting for anyone brave enough to go. She warns the group that the entrance to this temple will close forever at midnight, so they must hurry to leave. Her song promises that the axe of legend will grant its wielder absolute power over their own fate and destiny. The young witch finishes her performance with a flourish, urging the warriors to go forth and seize their own glory. While the tavern patrons applaud her performance, the Minotaur warrior admits that he rarely believes such tall tales are true. His companions argue about the possibility of the legend being real, but the leader remains skeptical of a free magical gift. Pepper is dejected when she realizes her elaborate plan to trick the men into leaving has completely failed to work. Cayenne sees right through her, remarking that Pepper is only working this hard because she has run out of magical energy. Pepper feels defeated after her elaborate plan to trick the rowdy warriors into leaving the tavern completely fails. Cayenne points out how pitiful it is for a witch to work so hard just to hide her lack of energy. The elder witch reveals she knew Pepper was exhausted and out of magical re the moment they arrived in the village. Pepper looks on in shame as her mentor criticizes her for neglecting her training and hitting rock bottom with her magic. Cayenne challenges Pepper to be brave without her spells, claiming that hiding behind magic is not true courage at all. Pepper worries that the warriors will just ignore her or even get violent if she tries to speak up without magic. Dismissing these fears as mere imagination, Cayenne encourages her student to face reality instead of letting anxiety dictate her actions. Pepper takes a moment to process the advice while the noisy warriors continue to complain about the quality of their beer. The young witch stands frozen in fear while the hyena warrior loudly insults the tavern's drink to his companions. The rowdy group continues their shouting match, making it impossible for anyone else in the tavern to enjoy a quiet evening. Stealing her nerves, Pepper finally approaches the loud warriors and asks them if they could please keep their voices down. She tries to be polite while explaining that the other patrons are just trying to have a relaxing night in peace. The massive Minotaur reacts with a loud shout of confusion, momentarily terrifying Pepper as she waits for his response. Pepper tells herself to be brave and repeats her request even more firmly despite her internal panic and lack of magic. She stands her ground and clearly asks the gentlemen once more to lower their volume for the sake of everyone present. To her surprise, the warriors immediately apologize and realize they have been far too loud for such a small space. The Minotaur explains that a fierce battle with banshees earlier that afternoon must have temporarily damaged their sense of hearing. The group kindly decides to move their conversation to the terrace, leaving the interior of the tavern quiet at last. The warriors apologize for being so loud and explain that a recent battle with banshees has temporarily damaged their hearing. As the massive fighters prepare to move outside, the other tavern patrons begin to applaud Pepper for her bravery. The entire room erupts in cheers and thanks as the young witch successfully restores a peaceful atmosphere to the establishment. Cayenne looks up from her newspaper to remind Pepper that standing up for herself was not as difficult as she expected. Pepper admits that her mentor is right, feeling a quiet sense of pride for having handled the loud situation so well. However, a thoughtful frown soon crosses her face as she realizes she is actually quite curious about those warrior stories. Seeing her student's hesitation, Cayenne encourages her to go join the warriors on the terrace before they decide to leave. With a bright smile and a quick thank you to Master Cayenne, Pepper eagerly heads out to find the group. Under the soft glow of hanging lanterns, Pepper and Carrot spend the rest of their evening listening to incredible adventure tales. If Pepper's chaotic journey kept you watching, support the channel by liking this recap and subscribing. Tell us which licensed Webtoon adventure you want to experience next, and we will see you there.